you feel a bit of betrayal from your own body, that it's not functioning the way that it promised you it would. And then to have no explanation for it. I've still got kind of scars in my arm from how many blood tests I did because they just kept trying. I spent a lot of money on specialists and a lot of waiting time. And I remember she said, I think you have chronic fatigue. Oh, okay, well, what does that mean? She said, there's nothing we can do about it. And actually all you can do is rest and start rethinking your life plans because your life's going to change.
So you take on the lighting process and things starting to fall into place.
As I said, after that morning, not able to walk 3 blocks to at least half an hour walk that I hadn't done in 2 years easily. I can do anything I want now. Like, I'm glad it's over, but I'm grateful for it because I wouldn't be who I am today or where I am today if I hadn't been through it.
That is the language of post-traumatic flourishing. I'm amazing.
Yeah.
And here's my backstory, and I don't have to shy away from it. I can tell the world, this is my story. So I'm really excited today to speak to Anna, who has done the lighting process with me many years ago. And she has said that she would come and share her story, which I'm very, very grateful for because I know the power of a recovery story, as does Anna. So Anna, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm really excited to talk to you. It's been almost 10 years since I did lightning process. So lots to tell.
Well, where to start? What I've normally been doing on these interviews is giving people a sense of what life was like before this all happened, before chronic fatigue syndrome raised its head. So what was life like for you?
Yeah, so I sort of had the world at my feet. I just turned 30. I was the fittest I'd ever been. I was a bit of a gym junkie. I'd sort of found what I wanted to do with my work life, and I was achieving there. I guess I could call myself a high achiever and as a personality trait, like since school. So yeah, I was in a new relationship. Everything was going really well. So yeah, and I was just been kicking some goals at work. Doing a bit of travel with work, which was fun. So yeah, life was really good and easy, actually, to be honest.
So at some point it suddenly goes from easy to hell on earth. So what was that transition like?
Yeah, so I caught a bug, a virus, and I thought, that's a couple of weeks, just sort of did all the things you usually do when you have an infection, and it sort of started to become a chest infection. Okay, yep, what a nuisance. Went to the doctors, got some antibiotics. Yeah, that didn't seem to knock it on the head. Started to try and go back to work because I was starting to take, quite a few days off by then, and I thought, well, I'll just, it'll pass soon. But it just didn't. I had to keep coming home from work early because they were sort of saying, Anna, you're not well, please go home. One of those people. And it just kept going and going. And then went to a different GP and they did a different test and they said, oh, actually, looks like you've got Legionnaire's disease. And so I got a different antibiotic. So that was great. I was probably a couple of weeks in by then, 2 or 3 weeks, which was long enough, thank you. And then so the cough and everything started to clear up, but I just felt awful still. Had the swollen glands and just felt so fatigued. And it just was not shifting. And I can't remember the exact time period, but it would have been a couple of months by the time that I was really lucky because I know a lot of people with CFS-ME take a long time to get a diagnosis. I was lucky with my GP that she sort of got onto that pretty quickly and was talking to me. And I remember she was writing down all my symptoms and I said, she said, is there anything else? And I said, I'm just finding I can't think properly. Like I'm pretty switched on person and I can't remember names. I've been working at the same company for 6 or 7 years and the people I sit next to, their names aren't even coming to me. Like I'm really finding that difficult. And she said, yep, that was the last criteria. I think you have chronic fatigue. I said, oh, okay. Well, what does that mean? She said, there's nothing we can do about it. So it was pretty common. I'm sure that people have that. It's like, it's nice to get a diagnosis. That's when it's something that they say, and actually all you can do is rest. And then that became, really, you should start rethinking your life plans I had some travel that I'd booked. Yeah, probably rethink that, rethink your family plans, because this is your life's going to change. You're not going to work full time again. And as a 30-year-old, who, as I said, I was doing pretty well. That was hard to hear. And I think, to be honest, I never fully accepted that. I just went, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
But I was recommended counselling. They said, oh, you're not depressed at the moment, but you probably will be. So recommended me for counselling, and which was pretty awful. But and again, I was lucky with my workplace that they were really understanding. So I did take some time off, and then maybe a month or so, and then when I was feeling okay, I went back to work. And a couple of weeks after I went back to work, we had a conference, and I actually collapsed. I was sort of just really trying to push through, and I collapsed, which is just really unlike me. So my friends and family and even my boss sort of said, look, maybe you take 6 months off, just to get back on your feet, get rid of whatever this is, and come back. And I said, I understand where you're coming from, but please don't make me do that. I need something. I need an anchor to hang on to with work. So yeah, again, I was really lucky. I was able to just come in, do what I could, and go home again. They just gave me basic tasks because there was no way I could do my old job anymore. My brain function just wasn't there. Couldn't remember how to do basic tasks. So I would come in, do some admin just to keep me on track and as kind of have an anchor to normality.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the day I would head home and rest. So it was tough.
Yeah. And the shift from this absolute confidence in your body and absolute confidence in yourself to go to the opposite end of the spectrum of such a lack of confidence and a loss of identity. That's a theme that comes up so often. Losing oneself.
Just my confidence came from my ability to, be articulate and problem solve. And as you said, like I was doing physical challenge courses and things because, as I said, I was getting really fit. So I was probably the most confident I've ever been. And then you feel a bit of betrayal from your own body, that it's not functioning the way that it promised you it would. So, and then to have no explanation for it. So the medical field just, I did all the tests. I think I've still got kind of scars in my arm from how many blood tests I did because they just kept trying. I spent a lot of money on specialists and a lot of waiting time. Like, this is going to be the next thing. And they just sort of look at me and look at my file and say, yeah, you've got chronic fatigue. Like, yeah, what does that mean? What can I do? No, I can't help you. So yeah, every time you think, yeah, this is the next thing, and you get that confidence drop again. So pretty tricky period to go through.
Yeah, and it's huge that you can get a diagnosis quickly because that's one of my bugbears as well. It shouldn't take so long, but then what comes with that diagnosis is often this devastating follow-up sentence of there is no cure, which that plays a part in the journey, this hopelessness. And luckily for you, you didn't buy into it. My wife, very similar. Her view was if someone can get well, I can get well. And she waited a long waiting list to finally see one of the top ME specialists in the UK. I think it was about a 15-minute appointment. And he said, yep, it's confirmed you've got ME. Here's a bit of paper to manage it. And she went, no, how do I recover? No?
Yeah. That's not one of the options.
No, that's right. And she said, no, well, I've heard people recover. What do they do? And he goes, oh, I don't know. And she said, well, I'm going to find out what they're doing. And he said, look, you have to take this seriously. Some people end up in a wheelchair. And she said, it feels like I'm the only one here taking this seriously. And luckily she didn't buy into that there is no cure mindset.
I hadn't heard of anyone who'd recovered. did become my full-time job because one of the cruel symptoms actually, so I basically had flu 24/7. And every now and then I would doubt myself and go, am I doing this to myself? And then I would feel my glands in my neck and they were so swollen. I just remember would, really feel for those and go, I can't make that up. And other people can feel those. I'm not making this up. There's something going on in my body, but no, I didn't have any examples to have that hope. I think I just went, well, I'm not doing anything else. I may as well get myself better. And I was just getting worse and worse. I think now that I understand the theory behind it and how these things work, with your brain continuing to build threat signals, I now understand that why I was doing the same thing every day, feeling sick, feeling unwell, and so then my brain would kick in sooner the next time, and so I was just getting worse and worse to the point where I was sort of expected at work. I think I sort of worked 10 till 3 days a week, and I wasn't even getting there one day a week some weeks. I would just get up in the morning, feel so awful, and but then I would spend the rest of the day going, right, how do I fix this? And it still took me 2 years to find someone who said, actually, I've recovered. And so I followed that rabbit hole, and thank goodness I did, because literally life-saving.
So you heard another recovery story as well. So what was the next step? So you made contact with me, and my memory was you were very, very excited and couldn't wait for a Brisbane training. I think this is accurate, and you came down to Sydney.
Yeah. Well, I saw on your website that you sometimes did one-on-one training, because as most people probably think, there is no way I can sit in a classroom for 3 days. I can't even, I struggle to get up in the morning. I can't sit there and get information fed to me for 3 days. It's not part of what I can do anymore. So I thought, maybe I can get this one-on-one. But when we spoke, you said, well, actually, my availability for that was going to be a long time away. I said, cool. What's the soonest option? And I do remember you sort of saying, look, there's one in Sydney, probably a month away or so, or there's one in Brisbane. I think the next Brisbane one was January, February or something like that. So I went, no, can't do another Christmas like this. Let's move this on. And I was really worried about the impact that travel would have. I noted this with one of your other interviews with Mariah, that traveling away was the best possible thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We prepare people for the going home, because there's a lot of routines and habits that we get into, like an autopilot. As soon as we walk in the door, there's an autopilot that is part of the problem that we need to look at. And so we can prepare people on the end of day one, they go home and they're ready for that. Sometimes it's also nice to have 3 days of success under your belt to then go home. And there's always work waiting for you when you get home. That's the beauty of that. Yeah. So my wife flew to London, like with wheelchair assistance, really got to London. And the very first day after the training, she calls me to celebrate. And she was saying, look, I'm going for a walk. It's amazing. She said, it's working. First thing I said, oh, be careful. First thing, that not celebration. I love you. You're amazing. I was just so in that old pattern. It's like, oh, be careful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's breaking those old patterns.
So it's one thing to learn it yourself, but to help anyone else understand is another thing. But no, I remember getting there to Sydney, and Mum said she would come with me, which is fantastic. I did need that support, and we'd managed to find a hotel 3 blocks from the training. And I remember I had to stop 3 times on the way because I felt so unwell, and it was, I just sort of thought, I don't know how I'm going to do this day. I'm going to do it, but wow, I'm going to really struggle. And the end of the first day, I walked back to the hotel, got my running shoes on, and Mum said, how'd you go? I said, Mum, I really want to tell you all about it. I've got to go for a walk now. Because my poor mum, she'd been waiting all day, and all I can do is come in and go. Anyway, I'm going to go now. And yeah, we weren't too far from Circular Quay, and yeah, I went for a walk, which I hadn't done, as I said, after that morning, not able to walk 3 blocks. So I walk, I can't remember how far it was, but it was at least half an hour walk that I hadn't done in 2 years easily.
Yeah.
And then met up with mum for dinner, and had a glass of wine with dinner, which I hadn't done in so long because of everything was so strict. And yeah, and woke up the next day better than I had the day before. So yeah, and that's such a strong memory for me. It's 10 years ago now, but yeah, that was the key that this is working, and it's going to work. Yeah.
Awesome. And when people hear that, it sounds a lot like pushing through. And when people come to me, their options are either avoid the things that set them off or push through and pay the consequences. But this isn't pushing through. This is understanding how this is all working and going to that walk to Circular Quay and taking charge of it and not triggering the historic responses, or when the historic responses kick in, you do something about it and continue. So very different from pushing through.
And I should probably qualify that by saying I probably stopped on that walk at least once a minute to do the process. And I remember on that first day, and you taught us what it was. And I went, hang on, sorry, we do this in public. Like, we step this out in public. And I remember you saying, you're from Brisbane, this is Sydney, you're not going to be the weirdest person on the street. So
a comment
as
on
I was
Sydney.
Walking, no judgment. But I would just stop. I would just go to the side and did the process and kept going, and then I'd stop, go to the side, do the process. So yeah, not pretending that I just went for a walk and it was all fine. I was doing the process the entire time, and that's probably the 3 days, and then for the next month or so afterwards, I sort of had an agreement with my partner at the time that if I just suddenly stand up and walk away, just let me do it. I just need to do it and come back and just return to what we were doing. That's what it is. And so that's what I did. Same with work. Just let me do it. It's all part of the process. Yeah. So it's not, definitely not pushing through, because I've tried that. Definitely tried that a few times and didn't work.
And that hearing the effort that goes into recovery, that's really important, because sometimes people say, oh, lightning process, it's just positive thinking. That doesn't work. This is not positive thinking. This is systematically and deliberately retraining your brain and nervous system that's stuck in some historic response, and it takes work. I don't know if you'd call it hard. It's repetitive and unfamiliar. It's not hard compared to what you'd been through for the last 2 years.
That's it. And that's it. Yeah, I've said that a few times where it is hard work, and then you say, but was it hard? And maybe that's it. Maybe it's not hard because you know where you're going with it. You're recovering. And, in the first time I spoke with you, talking about what is it that you want and how important is recovery. I was like, well, it's everything. I've lost my life. I felt like I'd just completely lost everything. So the recovery work was everything. And I did treat it as my main job. I had work, like I had a job that I would go to, but this was my focus. So maybe it's a focus thing that that's my priority, is doing this process, and nothing's going to come above that. And
I love that.
Yeah. Maybe that's.
I'm going to steal that,
how to
Anna.
describe it.
I
You're very welcome.
I love it. I love it. This is my health is my primary focus. And of course, people have jobs and family to look after, but all of that falls apart unless I have my health. So this is my job. I love it.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done. And I'm sure no one in Sydney is talking about you, Anna. They've forgotten the crazy lady walking through the streets.
I've done worse things since.
So you take on the lightning process, you're committed, and things starting to fall into place after the training. Were there any insights that came from the trainings or very clear memories that might be useful to pass on to people listening?
Yeah. I think one of the best things that I did to enable my success was really taking the theory and everything that you teach, and really thinking about how to apply that. And it's going back to that, those learned responses and those routines. So I was on the plane on the way home before we took off, and I messaged my partner and said, "Can you switch the couches at home, and can you change the orientation of the table, and can you switch, like, where our cars are parked? Can you switch I was just trying to think of anything that I could change that would slightly challenge my routine thinking. I think we swapped cars because I was driving a manual, he was driving a automatic. So I switched driving car, things like that just would help get my brain out of those routines. And I had a return to work plan, which seemed very reasonable after that long unwell. But I'd been taking like the 9:30 bus or whatever it was, and I decided, actually, no, that's the bus I took when I was unwell. So I'm going to take the 8 o'clock bus, and I'm going to take it from a different bus stop. I'm going to walk the extra and go to a different bus stop because that's my unwell bus. Now I'm going to take my well bus. I rang work and said I knew there was a desk spare next to mine with a different return on it. So the return was opposite. And I said, I know this is going to be really weird. I'll explain all this when I get back, but can you switch my stuff? Can you switch my computer to the other side before I get back? And I just noticed the difference, even coming back from the kitchen or the bathroom, my brain wanted to go to my old desk, and each time I had to correct it and go, oh no, that was my unwell desk. This is my desk. Yeah. So it was things like trying to use my left hand for things, like just trying everything I could think of to help the process and help my brain rewrite new patterns that weren't threatening anymore. Because I think I didn't realize it until I did the training that I every now and then I would do something, so maybe something social or something a bit different that I didn't get symptoms from. And that was double-edged because that made me feel guilty. That it was like, hang on, am I just avoiding work? Because I feel sick when I go to work, but I can go to this social thing and I didn't feel so bad. But now I understand that it just, my brain, if something new, and my brain hadn't assigned the threat to that yet. So yeah, that was a big learning for me as well, that to take away that guilt. Even the way I walked, I realized I had an unwell gait, like the way I walked, because the illness is invisible. And I think I started to hunch a little and walk slower to really prove to myself and everyone else that I'm unwell, because you couldn't see it. You can't see when someone's got flu symptoms, that they've got body aches and that sort of thing. So I felt so sick. I literally remember walking down the corridor at work and going, wait, I'm walking like I'm sick. So I changed my posture. I'm like, this is my well walk. I did it. And yeah, just little things like that, that's what I remember on those first probably few weeks after the training. They were the reasons that it stuck, I think.
Yeah, huge. Autopilot is the enemy when you're trying to make change. And so we're trying to make all these subtle unconscious things conscious so that you can do something about it. And it is amazing how we just get into an autopilot of how we sit, breathe, talk, eat, move, think, wake up in the morning, go to bed at night. And a lot of things I've heard online talk about the brain needs predictability. We have to keep in our routines, and it's this safetyism, like it's this actually pulling in, and actually novelty drives neuroplasticity. So the act of doing new things, if you have the skills to, do something, to change whatever you need to change, it's that novelty that drives neuroplasticity. We shift our focus. It's huge. Well done.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things that I don't know, like it's just a little story, I guess, that I had some friends tell me a little while after I got better, like when they knew that, okay, this isn't, you're not going to crash again, because I tried so many things, and they said, oh, I felt so bad when you were so excited about this one, because we just assumed that this would be the next failure for you. And we just felt really bad for you. And you were so excited and you were so sure it was going to work this time. And then it did. And they said, we're so delighted. And she said, I feel so bad now because we talked about it and we went, oh God, poor Anna, this is the next thing that's going to fail. Yeah. So that was just another thing that made me go, yeah, I wasn't going to let this one fail.
To let you in on a little secret, when my wife found out about the lightning process, I was so anti-lightning process. Just so anti-lightning process because I was a hypnotherapist. I looked into it and I thought, we've tried the hypnotherapy magic and that doesn't work. And so I was just so anti-lightning process. And I'd gone through so many, partial successes only to see it come crashing down again. And I just didn't want to get my hopes up. I was really, really hopeless. And this just seemed like another thing. But luckily she was committed and didn't listen to me and went off and recovered. And here I am, a lightning process practitioner.
Yeah. And a very good one. I'm very grateful for your wife's journey because it helped so many of us.
Well, I'm certainly very proud of her. She did an amazing job to get over to London. It's huge. And then to come back and put it all into practice. It transformed her life, my life. It's huge. So you transformed your life and shook things up. And so tell us about life now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess a few things have happened since in the last 10 years, but immediately after, it just gave me so much understanding of how the brain works. And yeah, I think you reminded me on a refresher that we did recently, which it's not about getting rid of the symptoms. It's about finding a life you love. And not long, it would have been 3 or 4 months after I got back, and I got back to work full time. There was I was working for a firm that had offices around the country, and the Perth office had someone go on sick leave, and it was a position that was a fair jump higher than mine. But my boss said, look, it's going to be a really hard job, but have a think about it. I actually laughed. I went, yeah, good one. No, thank you. And then I remember I was on the phone to my brother on the way home that afternoon and went, I think I have to take, this is terrifying, but I think I have to take this. This is, now knowing what I know now, I can't say no to this. So yeah, like 2 weeks later, I was in Perth. And then a couple of years after that, the company, and they said, look, we'd like you to sort of just slightly move sideways. It wasn't a demotion or anything, but if you want to stay in Brisbane, you need to move to this other role. And I was like, what's the other option? And they said, well, redundancy. And I went, okay, let me think. Because that was the scary option, redundancy. I've been at that company for 10 years by then. And they'd been very good to me, supporting me through my illness. And so the redundancy was a leap of faith. But I thought, no, it seems like the scary thing. So now I'm going to do the scary thing. And I traveled for a couple of months around Europe and got back and went, hang on, I can do anything I want now. So I was living in Brisbane, just me and the cat. And I went, hang on, all my family's back in Cairns. I don't think there's a job in Cairns that I can do what I want now. So I moved back to Cairns. Like I just got this confidence in life that I can do anything now. Look, if I can come back from what I was, the prognosis of, this is your life now. This is no good. To be doing what I was doing, I'm like, well, I can do anything now.
You have described the transition to post-traumatic flourishing. when people are stuck in like it's post-traumatic stress, their brain is going, I can't because of my past. I can't. Basically, I'm not safe because of my past. And then you make sense of it and you change and you get to a point where you can say, because of my past, I'm amazing. I can do anything. Like I'm safer now because of my past. This robustness returns. So well done, you, Anna.
Yeah, it sounds so cliched that I'm grateful for that period of time, but I am. Like, I'm glad it's over, but grateful for it because I wouldn't be who I am today or where I am today if I hadn't gone through it. So, yeah, it's one of those things.
That is the language of post-traumatic flourishing. I'm amazing. Like,
Yeah.
and here's my backstory, and I don't have to shy away from it. I can tell the world, this is my story. I'm amazing. That's what you're doing, Anna. So well done, and I know it will help other people because it's a familiar story. So hopefully people are hearing this and it's going, okay, yeah, that's my journey, and I can end up where Anna is. Wow. So any insights that you'd like to add, Anna? Any
I think one thing I've learned is, and you teach this in the program, is how to relate to other people when they're asking you about the process or anything like that. And I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. I mean, in general in the world right now, but about the lightning process, there is misinformation. I do think that perhaps I would have found the lightning process sooner had there not been all that misinformation. But the thing that if you can cure it using your mind, it's all in your head. And I've had, even after explaining it to people, that literally you could feel the nodes in my neck. They were swollen. I was physically unwell, and I had a very positive attitude to life and to my illness. You don't have to be depressed or anything like that for this to work. That it's, if you've got physical symptoms, that's still your brain giving you those symptoms. So, and if it can turn them on to be helpful, sometimes it just gets a little wrong. So I just want to put that out there, that if you think that the lightning process isn't for you because your illness or whatever it is you're going through is physical, not mental or psychological, definitely rethink that and consider the lightning process, because that's certainly something that I think if someone had said that to me, it may have swayed me. So that I think that's one thing I'd love for people to understand.
Really important point. I think one of the greatest dramas we had was when we split things up into either physical or psychological. And if nothing is showing up in your body, you're clearly all in your head and you're crazy. And the brain has no power, no role in this. It's been devastating. It has slowed progress for so many people. I have people come to the training with, there's a condition called complex regional pain syndrome, and their leg is, one leg's the blue or red, it's swollen, and but that doesn't mean that this isn't neurologically brain influenced. Doesn't mean you can't do anything about it. So many people, it's a common story. I know people go, well, I was put off the lightning process because I spent time in a forum where someone will traditionally get on and say, hey, I'm doing really well, I did the lightning process. And someone will go, well, I'm glad you got help with your psychological problems, but mine's real. Oh.
Yeah. Yep. And there's a lot of really negative stuff out there. And certainly, I don't know if it was at the same time or before I discovered the lightning process, but I realized how much that was affecting my health. Even things like I had insurance for my work, and I had to prove to them that that I was sick. I had to keep filling out the forms and getting evidence that I'm sick. And with CFS-ME, that's really hard to do because nothing's showing up. And I actually had to write to the insurer and say, you're actually making me worse every time you make me do this form, because they're making me do it every week or something like that. I knew at the time that it was making me worse. Now I understand why. And I know why, but the counselling sessions that I was going to, where this person just was really reinforcing the pacing and management side of things, that entirely well-intentioned, and just, just a lack of understanding of things. But now I know that that was probably unhelpful at the time. But just having the knowledge and yeah, you apply it to anything in life. That's the beauty of it as well. I'm better now. And to be honest, every now and then, I will be sort of, thinking, oh, I do feel a little bit run down. And I sort of go, okay, is this my symptoms, or have I actually just got sick? And I don't know. It could just be my brain trying to protect me again. And every now and then it's a day and I do the process. And the next day I go, what's my symptoms? Okay, what was I doing that was causing me the overwhelm? It usually work. Usually I'm just working too hard and too much. So I take that as a sign. Thank you, brain. I'm going to take a little step back and do some self-care right now, because it just sends me a little warning, a little, hey, slow down, or hey, calm down every now and then. And I use it as a hint.
Yeah.
And then I can go about my day. Sometimes it is actually a flu and I rest.
Yeah, it's recalibrating the brain and nervous system to produce, a response appropriately. And sometimes history gets in the way, so we just need to tweak it a little bit. I think a really important piece is that symptoms are triggered, not caused. It just so very different. So fatigue is triggered. And so it's like, okay, is this triggered because I've had a massive day or a poor night's sleep? Or is this triggered because of some little historic thing that the brain is jumping into an old neuro groove and triggering fatigue? Take some wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's still there, but it, I know how to address it now, which is
well, from a neuro nerdy point of view, we never lose all the neural pathways of our past because we kind of don't want to. We want all of those protection responses there. So the aim is never to get rid of all pain or fatigue or fear. We need them all. We just want them coming on appropriately. Awesome, Anna. Well, we didn't get to see your cat, who has been part of your journey through all of this. I was hoping we might get a visit at some point.
She's turns 17 tomorrow, so she was there the entire journey. She's a little support animal, so I'll say hi to her from you.
Very good. I sometimes have people with dogs, and after recovery, the dogs don't know what hit them. It's like another walk or going for a run. Jeez. Everyone
I think actually my cat was very used to me being home all day, so she probably wasn't a fan of the recovery.
Yeah, shakes it up for all our relationships. It's part of the journey as well. Excellent, Anna. So really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing it. I know it'll help others.
Thanks so much, Ian. Lovely to talk to you.